You're listening to the Pulled by the Root podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Heidi Marble. It is a rainy, cloudy day close to Portland, Oregon, and I am still recovering. My eyes are puffy from crying happy and sad tears after speaking with Heidi Frederick, author, adoptee, speaker, last night. Sean Farley also joined us on our call, and as you get to know him, he's just an incredible guy. He is creating the musical imprint for our Pulled by the Root project and also doing sound engineering. And he sits in on these to help me host and to also just learn more about the experience. Heidi also writes lyrics and poetry, and something really incredible happened. And I'm not going to give it all away. You have to listen. Also, just trying to summarize this in some way, Heidi was so profoundly organized in her thoughts and what she wanted to get across, and she spoke directly from her heart in a very thoughtful and powerful way. And what she shared with me, I actually felt during our conversation a part of me heal. It was physical. I had a really significant meltdown in the middle, which if you're listening to these, you're probably getting used to by now. I don't know if that's ever going to end. So yes, a lot of crying, Kleenex, and emotional outbursts. All right. Well, enjoy this episode. I hope you can gather so much goodness from it. Oh my goodness, precious people, welcome to the Pulled by the Root podcast. The sun is going down. It is beautiful tonight, and I am so grateful to have Heidi Frederick, who is an inspired speaker and author, willing to share her story. She is an adoptee. We also have Sean Farley, who is creating the musical imprint for our project. He also does all of our sound engineering. Just an amazing force on our team. He helps in all areas. So we're just really grateful to have him here tonight as well. And Heidi, before I read your bio, I had told you before we pushed record that before we interview, I always say like a little something to the universe, God, all the things before I talk to somebody. And I thought it was really fascinating that I pulled this quote. So I'm going to read it to you. The grace of God means something like, here is your life. You might never have been, but you are because the party wouldn't have been complete without you. Here is the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid. I am with you. Nothing can ever separate us. It's for you that I created the universe. I love you. There is only one catch. Like any other gift, the gift of grace can be yours only if you reach out and take it. Maybe being able to reach out and take it is a gift too. And I just thought that was beautiful because I know faith means a lot to you, and we'll talk more about that. So I'm going to read your bio so people know more about who you are. Heidi Frederick is an inspired speaker, writer who is passionate about guiding others toward healing the broken parts of their heart through faith, poetry, authentic discussions, and music. She is an advocate in the faith community and beyond to bring education, understanding, and compassion to anyone impacted by adoption. Heidi was born in Buffalo, New York, to a 16-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy, and placed by the state via closed adoption. She was raised in California since 1968 and still resides in Campbell, California, in the heart of Silicon Valley. She is the speaker of the Hopeful Butterfly. She is the founder of the Hopeful Butterfly Ministry, frequent speaker with Beautiful Warriors, and the author of Faith, Hope, and Love. But the greatest of these is love. Her story has been featured in a collection called Fixing a Broken Glass, Ordinary Women God Has Chosen for Extraordinary Use. Heidi serves as the executive assistant at City Team Ministries in San Jose. She is also a proud mother and grandmother. Wow, Heidi. So I think we should just start at the beginning with your adoption story, whatever you would like to share, and then we can just dive a little deeper. I have all kinds of questions to ask you. So we are just all ears. We're really excited to hear your story.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And I'm just always amazed how God uses what seem to be random events to open doors. And so, I got introduced to you via Facebook and was super excited to see what you're doing. And I'm just, as you know, super passionate for just education and people sharing their stories, because there are so many different stories in adoption. Some are really hard. All of them are complex. There's no easy, simple, basic story. So I think just the more we can bring things out of the darkness and the secrecy, a lot of shame around adoption, especially in the past. That's what I'm all about, and just being super authentic and just sharing and praying that it will touch someone's heart and help at least one, if not many more.
Well, I'm sure it will, Heidi. So can you take us back to the beginning? What were the circumstances of your adoption? I know you said 16-year-old girl, 17-year-old boy. When did you find out you were adopted? Maybe fill in some blanks for us.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously back then I knew a lot less. I was born in 1965 in Buffalo, New York, as you mentioned. Any kind of details that I knew was based off of a one-sheet piece of paper that kind of came along with me. And it just said, ages of birth parents. It said their nationalities. I think it said like what they wanted to be when they grew up, kind of thing. And I think it said hair color, eye color, but and I did have my birth name, which I thought was unusual, and that always brought me some kind of I don't know, like I was always really proud of that, and it kind of touched me, because I know a lot of people, if they were and I always stumble on this because the whole phrase about adoption, there's so many different phrases people use, and some people find offensive. But I always said put up for adoption because that's always how I heard it. Some people say placed, some people say a loving adoption plan. I just know from knowing my story that, and it's hard because these days that's what people say. So I don't ever mean any disrespect to anybody, especially because I have a lot of good friends who are work at crisis pregnancy centers and are real advocates for adoption. But from what I understand from my mother and father, it was not a decision. It was a crisis. It was, how do we take care of this before anybody finds out? And it wasn't their choice. It was parents, because they were young, they were kids. So when I really don't know where I was from July until I think October of 1965. I assume I was in some kind of foster care or something. The more I learn and talk to people, it seems like there might have been like a 90-day grace period or something, for the mother to change her mind. I'm not sure exactly. I've just heard a lot of people say they got adopted at 3 months old. So my parents, and this is another thing, and people who are adopted or in this world know we struggle with titles and things like that, so my parents are my adopted parents, and that's how I've always referred to them, as my parents. They're my mom and dad. So by the time they adopted me, they had already adopted another girl and another boy, who were each a year apart from each other. And then I was about a year younger. So I grew up with two siblings, and none of us blood related, but I just say that to describe the situation. My parents were a little bit older when they adopted us. I think like late 30s, very late 30s. I was born in Buffalo. I'm not sure where I was in the interim, but I know that my parents lived in Syracuse. So they ended up bringing me back to Syracuse. And we lived there. They were in Pennsylvania for a couple of years. And then my parents, their families were all from Ohio, their extended families. So we moved to California. I believe my dad got transferred when I was about 3 years old, so 68. And so we went to California. and grew up, and life was, life is what it is, and it seems normal at the time. And there was nothing, there were struggles for sure, looking back. And I always want to be respectful of my family, and I won't even be mentioning names here exactly, because that's the hardest part, I think, for adoptees is it's our story, but it's other people's story too. But so my struggle's been, do I still tell it, even though maybe other people don't want me to? But that's been one of my big things as an adoptee is like, we didn't have choices, when we were born. We were given this plan, and, we went along with it because we had no choice. And then later on in life, becoming an adult, we still didn't have choices, at least in closed adoption. So I'm really passionate about that too. And I know it's very complex with the whole opening of records, which in the state of New York, that was only passed January 2020. And so and because of COVID, it took way longer than it should have. But I got my original birth certificate for the very first time in 2020. So
wow, what did that feel like? I still haven't seen mine, even though I found my birth family, and I just think that would be such a moment. Tell us what was that like to hold that document?
It surprised me because I'll share more later. My experience too, but I just thought, like, at first I thought, oh, it's available to me now, even though I knew the information on it, but to see it. And I don't know, it really did something. I don't know. It's like, I felt like I won, or I don't know, not like then. It just felt like that made everything complete. And just seeing, I don't think I ever knew, there were some things I didn't know, like, I'm trying to think, like, details. I mean, all my life when I was adopted, I didn't know what time I was born. I didn't know how much I weighed, how long I was. I just knew I was born 14 in Buffalo, and that was it. But yeah, so getting that was pretty amazing. And sorry, my granddaughter lives with me, and they're just leaving right now. So.
Oh, you know what? We are okay with that. Happy children. That's fine. It's the screaming, crying ones.
Yeah. She's very animated sometimes, but
that's okay.
Yeah. But I think growing up in that time, I don't know how much counseling there was for adopted parents, how much they were, I almost feel like there was this manual that people pulled out, and there was one for birth moms. There was one for adopted parents. This is what you tell your kids, or to the birth moms. This is basically, nobody needs to know about this. Go on with your life. You'll have other kids. They'll never know who you are, So basically, this is the line in the sand. Just go on. And at the time, I feel like they thought they were doing what was best, but they really didn't know. And there was so much damage done. I've seen it time after time. And even with my parents, they, I think we had a little book about Unchosen. And so growing up as an adoptee, I was actually really proud. I kind of bragged about it, like, oh, I'm adopted. And my brother never talked about it. And my sister would kind of get upset with me, like, don't tell people that, that's private. And I don't know why. I was always proud of that. But what was really neat is that when we settled in Saratoga, California, two of our neighbors really close by both had two children that were adopted in their family. And so I grew up thinking it was normal. And I, like, until I got older, I didn't realize how special that was, that divine intervention, that my best friend who was adopted too. So I probably talked to her more about it even than my own family, I think. But I think, so I always knew I was adopted. My parents told us from probably since we could understand. But after the initial conversations, which I don't really remember happening, it was never discussed again. And I think that's just how they were told. And didn't know that might be something to talk about. So I don't know if it was a sign of the times. I don't know what it was exactly. I mean, also in the 60s, it's like adults were adults and kids were kids, and I don't know. You just didn't talk about stuff,
Right.
I think a lot of areas.
A lot of secrecy. It's interesting that you say that you felt special, because I thought I was like the queen of some adopted nation. Everyone's like, you're chosen, you're special. I'm like, thank you. Not realizing that to be chosen, you have to be unchosen in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that did not happen for me until I came out of the fog 6 or 7 months ago, when I had that profound realization. I don't know if you've had that experience, Heidi, but it just, we're born in the same year. And I think probably the same type of circumstances where secrets were just, that was it. My birth mother was made to feel less than because she was pregnant out of, marriage, and had to fly 3,000 miles away to have me. And I just think about the loneliness and despair and the trauma surrounding adoption that I was oblivious to, because I was being told one thing, but it was actually something else. And I know it's all meant to be protective, but I think as we get older and work through all these things, the fact that you were able to acknowledge and that you advocate for the issues surrounding adoption, I just wonder how that happened in your life. What was the turning point, or was one? Was it when you had your child? Was it like, when did you realize this is not just me being special? Whoa,
Yeah.
there's a lot more to this.
Well, there's an awesome book, which you probably heard of, called The Primal Wound.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like the adoptee's handbook. Yeah. Oh, I have the blue one too, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, prepare yourself. That's a rough one.
Yeah, I think I read a couple pages. I'm like, oh, I don't know about this one right now. But
no, it's amazing. But yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited to see that she came out with the second book, and then so we'll see. It all has to be in the right timing, But I think, like growing up, I definitely. Now looking back, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. I was super shy, like to the point of not talking to anyone that wasn't super close to me. Like I said, I talked to my best friend, I don't know, and I don't know how I showed up for other people. Like if people are like, oh, there's that girl who's kind of weird, but probably not. It was probably in my head. But and like even in high school, I would go on dates, and I'm not kidding you, I would not say a word, because I was just like so self-conscious. I would think everything in my head first. I'm like, no, that sounds stupid. Just like hyper self-conscious of myself, like everything. And I think now looking back, I probably suffered from depression and anxiety. So for me, it wasn't, it was in my 20s. A couple of different things. I kind of in high school, experimented a little bit with drugs and alcohol, and it's fascinating to me because there was definitely alcohol in my house growing up, and I'll kind of leave it at that. But I look, and it's a wonder to me that I didn't get addicted. But I was so regimented and controlled about what I drank. Like I never overdid it. But being so painfully shy, I felt like I had to have a drink before I went out on a date, and that's the only way I can talk. And so that was one of my coping mechanisms, I would say. And then I always wrote a lot. I wrote in diaries all the time, and I actually still have those and pulled them out recently. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of, turned into journals. And then I started writing some poetry, but that kind of went dormant for a while. But I think my adopted mom, we actually had the same birthday. And like I said, I'm the youngest of the three they adopted. And we were super, super close. Probably even in an unhealthy way, I would say. I kind of became her caretaker. She had a lot of health problems and struggles that I think were undiagnosed. So I kind of became her best friend and caretaker and nurse, so to speak, sometimes. And I lived with her. What's really interesting, and I don't know how much is adoptee, how much is just me, how much is other traumas, but I never thought about the future. Like I never thought about getting married, never thought about having kids. And I always had this sense of dread, like my life wasn't going to be very long. I don't know why. So I don't know if it's all the just rejection feeling. I don't know. I think it's just stuff that I didn't even know was in there that just manifested in these weird ways. And like nothing good was ever going to happen. And it's not like I was like super dark and deep and stuff like that, but I just no one ever talked about going to college. So I just started working after high school and I just didn't have any dreams. And I don't know why, except I did have one, was to be an actress. And I actually started down that road a little bit, but then my adopted mother, ended up passing away when I was 24. And so that was definitely one of the first pivotal moments for me as far as just like life got really real. I think my faith really grew during that time because we grew up going to church, but then there was a huge gap of like nothing after my parents divorced. I kind of feel like I felt God kind of taking over my life at that point, like giving me the ability to do things that I didn't have the strength to do. I ended up doing the eulogy at my mom's service, like the youngest shy girl is the one who stood up and like spoke to everybody. Sorry, I'm kind of like going down a little trail right now, but in 2 weeks after my mom died, I got pregnant with my son. And I was not married, and literally, I mean, not like TMI, but there was one opportunity to get pregnant that month and it happened. And I was totally unprepared. It's not like I didn't ever want children, but I can't even explain it. It's just, I guess it's just like survival mode is what it is. Like get through the day. That's probably the best way to explain it. Like no plans for the future, just get through the day, make it through, try not to have an anxiety attack. And I didn't have my first like full blown anxiety attack, huge depression until I'm trying to think. My son must have been like 7 or 8. And actually everything was going pretty well in my life. And I just had a meltdown and had to be out of work for 3 months. And so I think that's kind of where I started realizing something's wrong. I'm not crazy, but something is wrong. And I started going to church again and started my relationship with God. And he just kind of unraveled all the stuff that was inside of me. And I think that's my cue to read something to you. I didn't mean to say that word. There's a song called Unravelling.
Please do. Well, yes,
okay.
We would love to hear it. And is this something you wrote or something that you've heard?
No, this is a song that I've heard, and it speaks to so many different situations in life. So I think a lot of people can relate, but it just really, and it's a new song. So I just heard it recently. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my song, my life story. And so I'm going to read the lyrics, kind of abbreviated version. I won't go in all the choruses and stuff, but it's by an artist called Corey Asbury. So I recommend listening to it. I would have played it on here, but didn't want to mess with all the technical stuff. But, so it goes, I'm coming apart at the seams and everyone's pulling at me and I am unraveling. The smile isn't quite what it seems, but it does well to hide what's beneath. All the pressure is staggering. In the unraveling, Father, unravel me. When I can't feel a thing, have mercy and let me bleed. I know it's dumb, but I have been numb for way too long. So goodbye now, Yellow Brick Road. Thanks a lot. What I need is back home. So homeward I'm traveling. Never really, until tonight when I was reading it, I never really thought of it. Like, to me, I kind of feel like homeward can be like heaven or like relationship with God. But for an adoptee, it's like, that just hit me when I was reading it right now. Like, wow.
Heidi, that was, I mean, you spoke 3 words, and I'm sorry, everyone that's listening. I'm going to cry for every podcast. Just prepare yourself.
It's healing.
No, I just felt that so deeply, and Sean can relate to this too, because one of the things that's so important to me and to our Pulled by the Root team is music and expression, and being able to discover ourselves through these incredible songs and maybe our own writing. And I think you're absolutely right, Heidi. That was so perfectly placed. And I experienced that as an adoptee. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah. It's a beautiful song. He's got a beautiful, I would have sang it, but
maybe Sean can sing it sometime, because he's got a really good voice.
Oh, really? Okay.
He's a singer-songwriter. Like, the guy's insane. Yeah. Got to brag on you a little there, Sean.
Thank you.
Well, we may have to work together later with some songwriting.
I can do that.
Yeah, lyrics are my thing. I love it. I loved that movie, Music and Lyrics, that came out a few years back. I'm like, I just need my music person. I'm the lyric person. But yeah, I think definitely that I've been numb for way too long. That explains my life, I think. And again, like, I don't want to claim to be the expert of like psychology, and there's a lot of things that happen in my life past being adopted, but like, God has taken me on this journey to go through like my most recent hurts all the way back to the day I was born. And it took many, many years to do that. So I think, it's that, maybe it's like similar to coming out of the fog. Is that the term that people use? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, it was like, I had to go through where, okay, I'm really going to like feel this now. And I just grew up feeling very like detached, like alone in a crowded room, or kind of some of the things. I like, this might sound funny, but like, I related to Pinocchio because he just always wanted to be a real boy. Like, not, obviously girl in my, but
it's okay. We don't judge around here.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably for me. Oh, do you know your real parents? And that's another, thing that's hard to hear, because it's like, yeah, my real parents are the people that raised me, but it's funny. I've been through some retreats actually, more recently, probably in the past, I'm losing track of time, but within the past 10 years it was a gathering of some adult adoptees, some birth mothers who had placed their children for adoption, and adoptive parents. And we all just kind of like stood in that role and shared with each other what the experience was like. And it was so safe because it wasn't, our adoptive parent or our birth parent. And we could just hear the point of view, because obviously you just have your own, and that was pretty incredible. And I've been able to share too with either parents who have adopted kids or were thinking of it. And I remember one thing that really hit me was I had always told people that I don't know if I knew this, but I said, I've never met my mother or seen her or anything. And they said, you were with her for 9 months. I'm like, oh yeah. Like, I didn't like dawn on me, and what's weird is I never even thought about a birth father. I don't know why. Like, I guess just because, they do carry you. And I never played the story out in my mind, even though I knew on paper it said how old he was, but it was just, I mean, I guess now looking back, it might've been yearning, but like, I was so close to my mom. I don't know. It's just, as you probably know, it's so hard because like, you feel like you shouldn't have those thoughts, like you're cheating or something, or, yeah. I mean, I don't remember consciously having that conversation with myself, but I think like, I just knew that's something that you don't bring up. And I remember going to New York out of high school for this big modeling convention. I remember pulling out phone books, and I knew my birth name. So I knew a last name, but I didn't even know if it was hers or his. And I just remember looking, being like, that person could be related to me. That person could be related to me. But at that point, I was just more wondering, I'd say. And then, as I mentioned, I'm kind of going back a little bit when my mom passed away and then my son was born, it was a few years after that. I don't know what happened, but I'm like, I need to look. And I didn't really tell anybody in my family. I decided I wasn't going to say anything until like I found something. I mean, I wasn't going to like alarm everybody. And but I really started looking back then. So my late 20s. And back then, they didn't have all the DNA stuff. It was just adoption.com, the Soundex registry in the state of New York. And all I ever got was unidentified, I can't think of the word right now, non-identifying information. And that always kind of made me sad. Like, no one's ever gone back and like asked about me or looked for me. And yeah. And I just kind of assumed like that they never thought about me again, I guess. I mean, I didn't dwell on that, but it definitely felt like they were just an idea, not like real people. But one thing I was going to mention when I shared with these people who were thinking about adoption, they were saying, oh, we're going to adopt an infant because, we don't know if we can handle adopting an older child who has trauma and stuff like that. I'm like, for a second about that. And they had really had no idea. And it makes sense, that the baby's a clean slate, they won't. And they had planned on telling the child, but like thinking, there won't be any issues to deal with. So that's one of the things I'm big about. It's like, yeah. And I'll get into that a little later when I want to share, to share with adoption.
Yeah, Heidi, I can so relate to that because being late in life to discover, the primal wound and the trauma, I was under the same impression even as an adoptee. Well, I didn't remember it, so it doesn't count. But we don't get a free pass from, we're a human being for the 9 months we're in our mother and beyond. And those experiences matter. And I think they matter more than we could possibly imagine. And I don't think a lot of people, they just aren't aware. And so if we can have these conversations and make them aware, then that really helps everyone. Because, as the adoptee grows up, you spoke about the feelings of guilt and shame that a lot of us carry because we feel that we need to be grateful. Mm-hmm. And how dare we try to find the answers when we're safe? It's like so confusing and painful. But if people could understand that an adoptee is like a package deal, you have two sets of parents and that it's normal to want to understand your origin. And I think there are different levels at adoptees and different times in their life when they want to know. And I'm kind of new to all this, just, digging through it myself. So I'm really glad that you were able to have those very real conversations, which I think is the point of doing things like this is sometimes you don't know until you know.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm guessing I probably wasn't ready to find them when I started looking because I did everything that I knew how to do. And then I didn't end up finding them until 20 years later. It took me that long. Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't like constant, but yeah, I ended up, I don't know. I was doing like some other work on healing and, understanding myself. And then I joined a group. And this was way before the whole retreat thing I was talking about, the healing retreat. But I think it was an adoptees, and there was like these two search angel ladies, but people came who were doing reunions and searches and, again, from like all the different sides of the triad. And I was just listening and I'm like, oh my God, like it kind of, got excited. And then this one woman said, well, I was born in New York too. And there's a searcher who specializes in cases in New York because that's one of the hardest states if it's a closed adoption. And I like listened to these stories and I'm like, okay, but I'm like, not ready. And then I had started a new job a couple of years later and the receptionist was talking to me and we'd shared, like, I tell everybody I'm adopted. It's like like it says, how did it affect you? It's like my whole life is out of the lens of I'm adopted. And a shout out to Anne, who wrote the book.
Heffron, yes.
Yeah, you don't look adopted.
Yeah, we just interviewed her. She's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
She's a fireball. She is so insightful. So I'm so glad you mentioned her.
Yeah, I ended up getting to meet her and I took a writing class with her, but yeah, we met up for coffee at Starbucks. Obviously, we didn't know what each other looked like. And so she's like, oh, I'm sitting on the corner wearing, tracksuit or something like that. And I'm like, I'm the one that looks adopted. I'll laugh out of that, but
I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, when I started this job and we were talking about being adopted with the receptionist, she's like, oh my gosh, I just got this call from a woman who's doing this show on the Oprah Winfrey Network. She's like, and there's a woman who's looking for her child. She's like, and they think that this might be my birth mother looking for me. And she told me this whole story. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And then it turned out not to be her mother, unfortunately, but it triggered her to do a search and she found her birth family. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And she's like, yeah, the lady lives in New Jersey, but she specializes in cases in New York. I'm like, I've heard that before. So I proceeded to call. Her name's Pamela Slayton. And she's been on Oprah. She's been on all kinds of things. And I'm like, there's no way she's going to take my case. And she did. And 2 weeks after giving her any information that I knew, which was very limited, she called and left me a message and said, your search is complete. And yeah, so I was 45, I think, by then. And I didn't call her back. I was like, oh my gosh. Like I had to process it. And then she's leaving me messages. She's like,
hey, I worked really hard here. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, she's a search investigator. That's her profession. And so, but she didn't charge unless she was successful, which I thought was awesome. And I'm like, she's not going to find anything anyway. And so, yeah, she's like, I thought maybe you decided against it or you didn't want to pay or something. I'm like, no, I had to process it. And so she called me and told me my birth mother's name. She had an entire family tree laid out of all my birth mother's siblings, parents, all these names. And so I stayed up all night that night looking on Facebook and Googling people and looking for, I'm like, do they look like me? Do they look like me? Is that,
No.
So that was pretty incredible.
Yeah. What were you going through emotionally at that point? Were you nervous or what were some of the things you were feeling?
I don't even know. Just like adrenaline, I think. But the whole way through, what I loved is that Pamela coached me of, what now, what to expect, what not to expect. Basically, don't expect anything, just kind of like go with the flow. She coached me on when you make contact, this is what to say, not to say, kind of like ease your way in because you've been preparing for this, even though it was only 2 weeks. But this is out of the blue for them. This is 45 years later, and so she was great about that. But it was still hard. I think I know that I've had a much better outcome than a lot of people. So I'm very, very grateful for that. But it was shocking for my birth mom. And it took her a while to kind of respond to me. I'd left her, Pamela had her address, her phone number, like everything. And so like that first time that I called was terrifying, I have to say. And it was kind of like, okay, please don't let her answer. And then And I got her voicemail and left a message and just said, I'm doing some genealogy research on this family. And I'm just trying to figure out, if you're part of this family kind of thing. And then she didn't call me back at all. So then I'm like, okay, like, I know I have not come this far for this, but I wanted to be respectful. And that's, I think, the biggest thing for people is like, it's tempting to like try and go around and do other things, and contact other people. But I just feel like you just really need to be careful. And again, it's hard because like it is our story. And on one hand, I feel like adoptees completely deserve to know, but sometimes you need to, practice restraint and respect in order to get the result that you're hoping for.
Yeah, Heidi, I can definitely speak to that. I went into this with no advice from anyone, full of adrenaline. I was just all about, finally, I get the answers. And I just charged in like a bull in one of those Spain when they all run. It was like, here I come to Pennsylvania. I'm going to capture my birth family. And I really hope that people can learn from some of these experiences that the reunion can be traumatic too, because the picture that we have in our head can be vastly different. And I think it's really important that we're as prepared as possible psychologically and that we are respectful. I wish I would have done it differently because I think I could have saved a lot of pain for everyone. I just thought it was wonderful news and didn't really consider the fallout. And I ended up having to deal with that with the, destruction of the relationship with my adopted mom.
Mm-hmm.
And, it makes me sad because I think if I would have had just a little bit more information, if she would have had more, it would have gone better. And, you had mentioned that feeling of like cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually did. I had an affair with my birth family. I would lie to my adopted mom and fly and see my sister and tell her to be quiet in the car while I talked to my mom. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. It wasn't healthy, but it's really, really complicated. And, I'm just curious, like how did it play out? I want to hear what's next.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, when I finally I did end up having to speak to somebody else in the family because she was not going to call me back. And I prayed and I had people pray for me. So I didn't just randomly do stuff. But I had found this one particular aunt on Facebook. And I actually had, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. 2 of her siblings have passed away now. But I think there was a total of 7 siblings, big family. And it was one of the nights where I stayed up just looking at people on Facebook. And then I'd had this dream that I sent a friend request to my aunt. And I woke up at 2 a.m. from that dream. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. Because all my life, I've been stuck in analysis paralysis, just overthinking everything. Like I was saying, about thinking about every word that came out of my mouth. I'm like, when are you just going to take a chance? I live so small and so like afraid of everything. So I did it. And I think I went back in bed. And then when I got up in the morning, I had a message back from her saying, oh, I see a friend request from you, but I'm not really sure how we know each other. And kind of the rest is history. But we ended up chatting. And then I said, well, actually, I'm adopted. And then she's like typing. And she's like, when is your birthday? And then I told her and she's like, you're my sister's daughter. And it turned out that she had placed a daughter for adoption too. And she thought I was her daughter at first.
Oh, what? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was, and what's crazy, which I've learned later on, is that, and when I finally got to talk to my birth mom, she said, why did you contact my sister? And I thought she was upset. And then she's like, I think I know why, but I want to hear it from you. And I told her about the dream. I'm like, this is going to sound crazy, but I believe God showed me this. And she said, you're exactly right. And she said, she's the only sibling that knew about you and nobody else would have known who you were. So it's just the whole,
wow.
Just been like all these moments of like, wow, but, So kind of try and fast forward. My birth mother told me that she had gone, well, it's kind of a little bit, let's see. So I was born in Buffalo because she got sent away like your birth mother. And ironically, she lived in Syracuse too. So she went back home and I ended up in the same city as her, which she had no idea that's where I would end up. And then she went back to high school and met her now husband of many, many, many years. And she told him before they got married about me because she didn't want to have any secrets. But past that, like that was never talked about at all. But they became Christians in their 20s, and she said that they always prayed for me. And so when I did end up learning that, I'm like, oh, like I wasn't just forgotten about. And I think that's probably part of the whole process of how things ended up the way they did. They went on to have two other kids, a daughter and a son. And so my half siblings, and they never knew about me until I was 45. So they were a little bit younger than that. But so when she said, my kids don't know about you, and I don't know if I want to tell them, because there was just so much, like I think I even heard the term, she got caught pregnant, is I guess how they talked about it in the 60s. And it was kind of like, get sent away before you start showing, kind of like the scarlet letter. And so it was hard for her because becoming a Christian, it's like I was the example of that sin, and I mean, not me literally, but that whole situation that was kind of long forgotten about. But I've seen God do miraculous things in her life. And from my first visit where like she took me to church with her and she said, I'm not ready to tell people. So I'm just, is it okay if I just say you're our friend Heidi visiting from California? I'm like, that's fine. Like, I just want to spend time with you. And people are like, that's not very nice. I don't know. Like people don't understand it, but I'm like, I get it, and then the next time I ended up going back was 2 years later, and she like couldn't wait to introduce me to everybody. So it just, took some healing. And then on my first trip, I told her like, I kind of want to incorporate like because I think birth parents, when they do get searched for, I mean, there's all different reactions, but sometimes it's like, well, what do they want? Because they're told they're never gonna, you need to move on. And it's like, like we're not looking for money. We're not looking to disrupt your life. Like these are all the things that I wish I could have just said, but like, and eventually, as we got to know each other, we were able to talk a little more openly, but so I have some notes here too. So, but it's like, it's to explain to people. And I guess this kind of crosses over to adoptive parents too, because that's been hard. My mother, I told you, passed away a long time ago. I don't know that I ever would have went searching if she was alive. I think it would have broken her heart because we were so close. And, what I've learned is like when I talk to other adopted parents, I try and tell them like, I know for me, like I didn't go searching for my birth mom. I went searching for me and who I was and where I came from. And it's like people that aren't adopted, they don't know what that feels like, so it's hard for them to understand. And it's like a basic human right to know where you came from and what your nationality is. And, but, a lot of adoptive parents think that you're going to look for the other family because they weren't good enough, and, I did this for you and, they didn't want you. I don't understand why you would, almost like reward them for that, like they don't deserve to know you. And, it's been hard. I have to be careful and I want to be honorable and respectful of my family I grew up with too, but it's been hard. Some of us talk a little bit more, but
yeah, Heidi, You were a lot more polite than me. Yeah. No, I think that your thinking is it's really beautiful because you're not just considering yourself. And what you said, that you're searching for you, I've never heard anyone say that, but that is exactly what it is. And I think that message is huge, and it's going to help so many people. Because I think one thing that's really difficult about this when we speak about adoptive parents, even my adoptive mom used to tell me, your heart is capable of loving. There's no end in sight to how much you can love. That's how I was raised, that our capacity for love is endless. But all of a sudden when I went to search, it was like, but not them.
Yeah.
You can love all these people, but not those people. And trying to understand the threat that she felt, it's really hard. And I just overrode that because I figured out in my own mind that we would heal, but we never did. And so I think it's really important to have a deep consideration and to highlight, kind of, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to go about any of this, but I think one of the dilemmas too is if like you wait until your parent passes, like your adopted parent, you might end up finding that your other parents are gone as well. And that is like, oh gosh, is there any way to win in this, Heidi? Like, I feel like it's almost like you have to pick your hard, like which difficult thing are you going to do? Are you going to wait? Like my mom, I'm like, you're going to be 150. Like these are strong women, I'm going down way before she is at this point. So I don't mean to make light of it, but I think that, I think it's super complicated and that different points of view are really necessary here.
And I think probably sometimes you just have to accept that it's a subject you can't talk to them about, your adopted parents. Yeah. And it's all really based on hurt, I mean, sometimes it comes out as anger or jealousy. And just like you said, there's enough love to go around. It's not a competition. It's not because you weren't enough. Like I look at it as like step parents or in-laws and stuff like that. And yeah, and I've actually never been married, so I don't have that extended family. And even I mentioned earlier, my adopted family's extended family all lived in Ohio. So I grew up like without being around family really. And my parents divorced when I was 12. So I think I've always secretly yearned for that. In fact, kind of funny confession, I used to love watching soap operas and things like that on holidays where all of the families gathered together, like a big reunion. I'm like, that's what I want. And this is tricky. I'm always so careful, but like I have family gatherings with my family and I love it, but like we're small. And one of the neatest things that's happened, my second visit back to Syracuse, my half sister was pregnant, and it's hard to figure out what to call people, but my birth mom's husband, I guess technically is my stepfather, his whole family and him completely welcomed me so much, like treated me like their own. And so his sister called me, like we hadn't even met yet. And she's like, I can't wait to meet you. She's like, I hear you're coming and you're going to be at the shower for the baby. And she's like, it's like we're welcoming two babies into the family that day. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, just like little special moments like that. But and when I did meet my birth mother the first time, I told her, I said, I want to see, like, do you have yearbooks? I want to see what you look like when you were, a teenager. And again, I was looking for resemblance, and I don't feel like I look a lot like her. Again, it's hard to tell what you look like. Sometimes there's people you look at and you're like, that person looks like me, and other times not so much. But definitely, I think our personalities are really similar. Her husband said when I walked in the room, he saw like their daughter, but with blonde hair.
Wow.
And then my brother we're really similar too, very similar temperaments and just crazy things. Like I'd mentioned, I was on the worship team at my church, and I was in like the drama team that did this huge Easter production every year. And when I met them, my mother and my brother's actually a pastor and was the worship leader at his church. My sister was in the dramas, and my mother, she's like me. She's like, yeah, I sing worship, but I really don't know how to sing. She's like, they put me up there because I need someone to stand there. But, and crazy things like my mother and I had like the exact same Bible, and just like all these things of like that whole nature
connection. Yeah, the connection.
Yeah. I'd like to read a poem that I just wrote, especially for you.
Oh my gosh, Heidi, I would absolutely love that.
Yeah. So for those listeners and for Sean too, I have shared with Heidi that I wrote a book of poetry called Faith, Hope, and Love. And I've actually written a second one, and I haven't published it yet. And it's been like sitting around for way too long, and I need to do something with it. I've just written poetry since then, kind of every now and then. So I work really well under pressure, or like when somebody asks me to do something. I guess I'm very obedient, but and I had shared that I had poetry, and Heidi asked me if I'd read any, and then she's like, or maybe you could write one about like the theme of Pulled by the Root. And at first I'm like, oh no. And then I'm like, it's perfect to have that like assignment. So I will read that to you now. It's called Wildflower. Blown by the wind of circumstance, set on a course of nurture versus nature. Yet thriving, or at least pretending to, struggling through each day. Blossoming into a delicate, tender flower, yet withering from unimaginable fear, feeling trampled on by life in criticism of herself. Wildflowers, often overlooked, yet providing beauty in unexpected places, like a deserted road or a dry desert, withstanding the extreme storms of life and heartbreak. Desperately wanting to stand out, yet longing to fit in. Doubting her worth or place in this world. Tired of feeling numb, yet scared to feel, in case the pain is unbearable. But seasons come and seasons go. A time to feel and a time for healing. A time to accept and a time to surrender. Although unplanned, planned by God, his masterpiece, on purpose, with extreme value and utter significance.
Sorry. Oh, Heidi. Oh my gosh, someone take over the interview.
Heidi, well, maybe
goodness.
we can collaborate and turn that into a song.
Oh,
I'd love that.
Please.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness.
That has been like the desire of my heart ever since I started writing. As I shared before, I think before we were on air, yeah, I'd love that.
Oh, Heidi, I was talking to another adoptee this morning, a gentleman from New York, and we were talking about just how amazing it is to be able to connect with each other, and we're giving the belonging and the healing that we've always craved. And that was just, I literally could physically feel something just kind of smooth over inside of my soul. I just wish I could hug you. So thank you. That was so incredibly beautiful. And I know we're at about the hour time, and I want to make sure we've covered so much territory in this, and there's so many beautiful moments. And I just wanted to, maybe we could wrap this up by, I don't know, Sean, if there's anything you wanted to say, or if there's any advice that you can give to people that are listening. And we hope it's many people that are listening from all sides. And, I just wanted to see if you guys wanted to jump in, and so I can go blow my nose.
I'd like to read a couple of little pieces of advice, I guess, I'd like to share. So I'll try and keep it kind of brief. So first, what advice I can give adoptees? I just encourage people to read books to understand why you might show up in life the way that you do. One of the books I mentioned before, I think, was The Girls Who Went Away. And this is for adult adoptees who's not birth moms. We're back in that whole era. It helped me really understand more. The Primal Wound, which you mentioned, and then also You Don't Look Adopted by Anne Heffron. I encourage people to join an adoptee support group. But as I shared with Heidi the first time that we spoke, I joined a whole bunch of them on Facebook, but you kind of have to be discerning. And just like for reunion, you have to be prepared, because there are some really angry adoptees out there. And it's like, like toxic. I've gotten attacked on there for a number of reasons, And the thing is, like, I'm a really empathetic person, so I get it. And they have a right to have their feelings, but it's like, don't attack me. And I've kind of learned, okay, you're not going to talk them out of it. Don't try and be the savior and heal them and stuff like that. They're not ready. But there are some great groups for sure. And like you said, like, we're kind of our own family in a way, like nobody else can understand it the way that we can. And then there's counselors too, and not all that many really, who have specialized training for adoption trauma. There might be some adoptees out there who think this hasn't affected me at all. I've known a lot of people like that. And then all of a sudden they hit a wall in life. And maybe you never will either, but, and maybe you have no desire to search for your birth family, and that is totally fine too. There's not like a right way or wrong way. Everyone has their own journey. But if you do decide to search, like I was saying before, it's your story and your journey, but it does involve other people. So just know that it's going to impact people. So you have to navigate that and kind of count the cost and figure out, who to share with and who not to share with, but have people to share with for sure. Whether it's, really close friends or family that are open to talking about it, or people like Heidi and me and Sean. I never caught if you're an adoptee or not in this.
I am not. I'm learning so much though about this world. I've told Heidi that I've grown up around this, but it's certainly something to sit and hear such a different experience of growing up in life,
Yeah. I would say that you deserve to know your roots. And you likely lived with trauma, and you may be conscious of it and you may not be. And then I guess what advice I could give to adoptive parents. And so I have kind of two categories. One is parents of adult adoptees. And like I mentioned before, the search was to find me, not replacement parents. Have empathy and compassion for your child. They had no control of their destiny and have likely suffered silently. It doesn't mean that you're not enough. It doesn't mean that they love you less. And what I really encourage, and this is to parents of adult adoptees, or open the discussion and trust the relationship that you have with your kids. If you have a good relationship, it will likely get better. And if you don't have a good relationship and you lay a guilt trip on them, it's going to get worse. Don't make them feel like they have to hide this part of their life from you. We need you, and we want to find truth and not create more secrets. We want to share this with you, and we'd love it if you could even meet our birth parents. Think of the birth parents as in-laws. There's enough love to go around, and it's normal to feel sad or jealous, but trust the process. And then for parents who are looking to adopt or adopt young children, like I mentioned, adopting a newborn or infant doesn't make them a clean slate. Recommend reading The Primal Wound. Talk to lots of adoptees, other adopted parents and birth parents to understand. Encourage open dialogue as they grow older. Provide a safe place for them to share and process, such as a peer group or a therapist who's knowledgeable about adoption, and adoption trauma, or a healthy adult who can relate. They may feel scared to talk to you about it, about their curiosities, about their birth parents, even if you open that door. And then what advice I can give birth parents whose child has come knocking on the door. We don't want money. We just want to know who we are, who you are, and where we came from. We aren't mad at you. We don't want to disrupt your life. We want to know your story and how we came to be. We want to understand why you placed us and what you went through. We hope you thought about us, at least on our birthday. We want to see where we got our looks, our talents, and our mannerisms. We say we just want to know our medical history because that feels safe. We would love to know if we have siblings. We're afraid to get rejected or abandoned again. If you aren't able to welcome us into your life, please give us the chance to know other relatives. And one thing that I kind of thought of before we went on here, I just want to, if there's anybody on here who's facing an unplanned pregnancy, I know so many birth mothers who at that time it seemed absolutely unmanageable and impossible for them to keep their child. I would just encourage you that there are so many resources now and that this is a lifelong decision. So just consider it wisely, I would say. I've seen so many women who are my age who put their children up for adoption, and 2 years later they were fully capable and have lived with regret ever since. And some were open adoption, some were closed, and so some even have their children in their lives, but it's just not the same. And they're just, they weep and are just mourning, and it's, I don't know, like in some situations, I almost wonder, like, would it be easier to have a closed adoption and not, I don't know. I think it'd be even harder to like see them, but not, it's kind of like, they're just like, you're reaching for them, but you're just not quite there. But, and I think that's about it.
Oh, Heidi, this has been incredible. Yeah, I just don't know how to summarize it other than saying I think that you and Sean need to write this song, and we need to have you back again. I would love to talk to you more. And I think it would be really, really amazing, like if we had a group conversation where we had, maybe different people, from different sides to talk and to share. I think that would be incredible. So you're not going to get rid of me.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Oh,
same.
We thank you so much, Heidi. And it's just been incredible. And Sean, thank you so much for being here. for listening, for being part of this project. I'm so grateful to the people that are not even connected to adoption who surround this project, because they believe that we can help the world heal a little bit. And so just so grateful to you, my friend.
Well, and thank you too for your stories. I've, just listening to this, just gives so much perspective. And Heidi, I want to thank you. I mean, I've listened to all of these ones we've recorded so far. And, I think the world is lacking something that you just exuded this whole conversation, which is empathy. And I just felt good to hear that so much from a human being. We need more of that.
Oh, thank you so much, Sean.
Let's make a song together too.
And I would love to do that. I could do interpretive dance. I can't.
I actually, I think such the profound quote from you for me was that I wasn't searching for you. I was trying to find me. Mm-hmm. Are you up for another poetry assignment?
Oh, sure.
Could you do something based on that? And I know not all poetry has to have like a rhyme scheme to it. But I just can almost hear a song in my head right now. And I like rhyme schemes with a song like this. I don't know why it's specifically calling to me. And I would like to connect with you after this, and maybe we can work that out together. Heidi had a poem, Dig, that I think when I was first getting into her book, I heard that and I was like, hey, can I add like 3 words to this? And we'll have 24 instead of 21. And it's this even, it's this song all of a sudden. And I think it would be neat to have another one of those to work on with you. So if you're awesome. Up for it, we'll connect after this. And Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing too, because we want to share all of Sean's original music, and having these collaborations with different writers and people. It's actually the dream come true, right, Sean? I mean, this is what we wanted.
I told Heidi, it's co-writing can be weird sometimes, but what I like is when someone already has a story to tell. I've said throughout this year, I'm writing an instrumental album because I'm not ready to talk about just the last year of my life, which is the first time I've ever really encountered that as a songwriter. So when Heidi asked me to do music based on like her stories and stuff, I was kind of relieved, and it felt like some good hybrid. And I can just, add music to someone's beautiful story that's already impactful. And honestly, maybe it's easier for me, I guess, admittedly. But I think it can have more meaning too with the collaboration. And maybe it'd be something really cool just for this project and just for other adoptees. And sometimes people can hear a song more than they can hear a conversation or a lecture or a book. It's, the more mediums we have, the more consumable it can be for more people. So let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like songs, I always tell people it bypasses the brain and goes straight to the heart. So
that's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, it's almost like the sounds, the music, the notes can sort of be almost a lubricant to soften you up. Or I think people are used to hearing a song and maybe hearing a powerful message or a sad story. So, maybe like I said, it might make it more consumable for them. And at the end of the day, it's about getting the messages out there. So
yeah, for sure.
If we can help, we'll do it.
Oh, you guys, this was amazing. I'm going to go wipe the mascara off.
I was watching Heidi as you read that stuff. I was like,
She's going down. She's going down. Oh, I just want to hug. These Zoom boxes make me crazy. Okay. Well, I thank you guys. I hope you have a beautiful evening. And this will never be left from my body. Like this was insane. Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, you guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.